Alright guys, we're unpacking our next radio, and this guy understood the assignment. He gets an A++. Look at this, huh? Yes, finally somebody listens. Look at that, it's like packed in a sarcophagus. Alright, we're gonna reuse all this. It's gonna go right back home in the box it was shipped in. I like it. Saves me money, saves you money. So, look at that, huh? And not only that, but little bonus points for using ESG safe bubble wrap. Look at that. That's just what this pink stuff is. It's ESG safe. That's why it's pink. To differentiate it from inferior bubble wrap. All right. All right, buddy. You got it. You did it. Okay, so let's take a look at what we got here. I don't recall whether or not this guy wanted Bluetooth or not. I have to go back in my notes. And he does not want his faceplate restored. Which is actually not necessary. Let's take a look. Let's get a closer look at this. This faceplate is in really good condition. Interestingly enough, this is about what mine looked like originally. This is pretty good. It's as good as they get. But yeah, the one in my 94 looked about like this one. So we will not restore his faceplate. But what I might do is change out his decals. I have so many of them now, I might as well do that. And we're going to replace his missing volume knob, and which means I'm going to have to refinish one. Let's see what I have for volume knobs. I think I've got a couple of them. And I might actually have one with some of the original finish on it, and I can save him a few bucks. I won't have to charge him to refinish one. And this is the nicest one I got. Let's see. And I discussed this with him over the phone. I've got one that's actually black. All the coating is gone. I'm going to offer to save him a few bucks, and we'll sell him this one. And that'll fix his volume knob. So, save him a few bucks. I think that'll make him happy. Okay, so I just took a look at the docket on this one, and we are going to do the following. We're going to be replacing all of the lamps in both units. We're going to refurbish the cassette deck. We're going to get the CD player to work. We're going to install Bluetooth, and we're going to replace the volume knob. So if he's okay with this, I'm going to save him a few bucks. And that's got the factory finish still on it. I think I can clean it up a little better, and I think that'll make him happy. Now, this is going to be a Bluetooth conversion as well. So I've talked about this in my previous video. I have essentially cemented my, not cemented, but I have determined the method I'm going to be using from now on with the Panasonic radios, and you're going to be giving up your CD player if you want Bluetooth, which is fine because the CD players are almost always unfixable on those. If you really want the CD player to work, you know, we can talk, but it's going to be some expense on your behalf whether it works or not, and that's unfortunately how I've got to do it. Unless I can find somebody good with electronics who can decode the problem. Yeah, I think at some point I'm going to have to farm some things out because I can't do everything, and that's that. I'm gonna go ahead and just change out these decals because I have brand new ones that will make this look like $1 million. I'll give him a price break on that if he wants, but let's see if we can clean this up a little better. This is the first one that I've gotten in, by the way, that the customer has specifically stated he does not want it refinished. Again, I respect that. This radio is actually in remarkable condition. This car was more than likely a garage queen. You know, probably ridden on sunny days. You got a little bit of paint loss over here, but I don't want to mess with it too much. The buttons are perfect. They're not too badly yellowed from sun. But even these decals are in pretty good shape. But I'll give them the option. I can swap them out. You know, I'll give them a price. I give them a deal to do those. I am the only one, by the way, who has those. Nobody has these except me. So, you know, it's kind of an exclusive that you get with me. I don't think anybody else is laying out the cash to have those reproduced. I think I'm the only one dumb enough to do that. All right, before we take it apart, let's do a function test. Plug it into our harness and see where we stand. He said that some of the rotary pots are noisy, so we might have to swap some of those out. I do have a few spare rotary pots for the volume control, etc. I've never swapped one out before because it's a little bit of work, but you know, see what we can do for them. You'll notice that there is a one of these cassette conversion thingies stuck in the cassette deck. These don't do these. These are, you know, I mean, I get it. I had one of these in my car as well. Here's the problem with these cassette adapters. Now, in the 90s, when these were relevant, and when they were selling a lot of these, you could get a decent quality one. And they weren't terribly, they're a little pricey, but you could get a really good quality one 25 years ago. If you buy one today, it's nowhere near the quality level that they were back then. So they don't really sound that good. They're all often misaligned. They're just NFG. So, all right. So we got power on. Let's look at our bulbs here. Looks like we don't even have any bulbs out. Now that's impressive. This came out of a low mileage car, I bet you. All right. So let's turn it on. FM. Oh yeah, I hear it. A little scratchiness there. It's also muted. .9. Oh yeah, I don't get a very good signal without an antenna. A little scratchy at the low end. All right. Little scratchiness in these, I can fix that. That seems to be okay. All right. All right, volume control is a little scratchy, so that's the only one affected. Cassette deck belts are bad. We have new ones. CD player. Guarantee you it doesn't work. Here we go. Oh, whoa. It's really dead. Won't even inject. First time I've seen that. Okay. All right. Well, that gives us something to work on. I should have enough parts on hand to fix everything that's wrong with this in one shot. So let's get started. Take the ground wire off. Take it down and take it all about. You take the radio apart and then you work it all around. Oh yeah, I gotta take the brackets off. Gotta get that apart. I should get myself a production line screwdriver like I have at work. Makes this job a lot easier. I got one at work. It just hangs off the a tool balancer from the ceiling, and wow, this has never been apart before. Yeah, this radio came from a nice... I would love to see the car this came off of, because if the radio is in this condition, the rest of the car must be pure gold. And now that these are collectible cars, collect all 5. So let me tell you about a project I'm doing on mine. So every year, I, just like I did with my Honda Helix back in the day, I'd make a mental note of things that need to be worked on the car in this case. And every year I start working on whatever those little areas of concern are. For example, during the pandemic, it was suspension work. I had to rebuild the car's complete suspension. Everything had to be redone. Well, actually, no, I didn't do bushings. I just did the I did all new shocks and shock mounts and everything like that. Well, this year it's gonna be fuel tank seals at the top. So I got in the car. We were driving through Vermont. Nice hot day, and we were on the road for maybe an hour or two. And all of a sudden, I just started getting this wicked smell of gasoline. Now on the Miata, the fuel tank is behind the driver's head. I'm sorry, the fuel pump, okay? So the fuel pump cover and all that stuff is right behind the driver. And what I discovered was the top tank seal that seals the fuel sending unit and fuel pump assembly to the tank. It's just a rubber seal. It was more than likely starting to leak, but only vapor. So it hasn't gotten to the point where there's gas pouring into the car. It's not like that. And it only happens when the tank is under pressure, like on a hot summer day. Anyway, so long story short, I took it all apart the other night, and I found that what's actually happened is a little bit of surface rust has formed between the tank and the tank seal. Now I peeked out into the tank itself, and it's beautiful. The fuel tank is absolutely stunningly beautiful, in perfect condition. So grateful for that. No rust in the tank, nothing, no sediment either. It's like brand new. And so what I decided I was going to do is just change out the seals, get it done. So I got those ordered. But I also need to take my radio back out, because I have a few things that I want to do. A couple of things I've learned after doing a bunch of these, things that I need to correct. So let's see if we can get this faceplate off. I was just working on some Panasonics, and it's a little bit different process. Here we go. Take that off. Yeah, this one's never been apart before. Now, what has me worked up is that CD player won't take in anything. So, could be a bad switch, could be a lot of things. So we'll put our faceplate aside. This is literally what mine looked like, but it just wasn't enough for me. I wanted it to look brand new. And, but this guy appreciates a little bit of patina, and yeah, it's not bad. All right, what's going on with this CD player? Why won't she unload or load a CD? Okay, get these screws out, and we'll take a look. Are we dealing with burst capacitors on the power supply? So I'm going to have to take a good look at that power supply and see if there's anything burst, any capacitors that have burst apart. And those obviously will get changed if that is the case. And I I've mentioned this before, but I'm not offering a recap service unless it's specifically requested, because it's just not necessary. It really isn't, if I'm honest. So, in there, let's take a look at the, there should be a little micro switch. Now the CD strikes when you stick it in the drive. Let's see. Take a look here. Unless it's completely frozen up, now that would be a first. Oh, I think I found the problem. I freed it up. Ah, look at that. I think we fixed it. Yeah, it just, that gear kind of froze up. So this gear right here was stuck. And let's put it back together. Let's see what we get. Maybe I'll toss a little bit of lubrication to it. Give it a little something something. It's the first one I've seen though that had that problem. Alright. I'm gonna say that this unit probably has fairly low hours on it, just based on the condition. It doesn't look like it was used really heavily. There is a lot of dust buildup by the cassette deck. We'll talk about that in a minute. So we'll just pop this down. But yeah, I've got my Bluetooth mods down to a science now, so pretty much have a routine for those. So I can do these pretty fast. They're not that big a deal. I'm going to cut the rest of this off of the... there we go. Alright, so anyone sending me a radio at this point, I am not like in a rush to get these done, and I make sure my customers know. Like, don't expect this to be done in a week. I have a life too. I've got a life and a very demanding full-time job, so it's really like when I get to it, when I have time, you know, that's when I do these. And I'm going to try to film as many of these as I can for the customers to see what I'm doing. I like transparency, and I like to be honest with people, and I want them to see what they're actually paying me to do. And that way they can decide for themselves whether or not this is a service worth paying for. But, you know, so far this channel has generated more leads than the forums that I post on, so I'm actually kind of grateful for that. People still trust me even though they see me working on these, and I guess I'm doing something right, so I have to at least give myself credit there. So let's turn this loose. Here we go. I bet that CD player works now. And I bet it plays, because again, it doesn't look to be beaten to hell. So let's see. There we go. It spins. Oh, it reverses. Okay. Let's try something new. Okay. All right. So let's try this. Possible that laser diode could be failing, but you'll notice that it just spun backwards. This is what's happening to me on the Panasonics almost every time. I'll fix what the root problem is, and then I'll power it up, and all of a sudden it starts spinning backwards. So yeah, that's not good. Let's see what we get. Okay. Let's back out. Oh, did I release that? There we go. Yeah, so you know, this is a fun little gig. It really is. You know, you never know what you're gonna run into sometimes. Usually they're fairly you know, they're fairly easy to diagnose. I don't usually charge extra to fix a CD player unless it involves replacing parts. And let's So if I have to replace parts, I'm going to check with the customer, make sure they're okay with it, and I'm going to tweak that up just a little bit. Okay. But there could be other issues at play. And we want to make sure that that lens is clean. Somebody made a comment about, oh, it's just a dirty lens or something. And no, it's never just a dirty lens. We wish it was. We clean them anyway because it doesn't cost really anything to do so. But it's never a dirty lens that makes these not work. I wish it was. That having been said, there's a possibility that you know, a dirty lens can render a CD player inoperable. It's just, it has to be, I mean, it had to have been owned by a heavy smoker, really, for that to really be an issue. You know, if it was in a car that was heavily smoked in, like my grandma's car or something, you know, that woman smoked like a goddamn chimney. And yeah, her CD player might not work because, you know, because she smoked in it. Or because of a dirty lens. Anyway, we'll clean this up too since we're in there. And we're gonna, we tweaked the lens power. Oh, I meant to clean the lens. I didn't do that yet. I cleaned the, you'll notice what I just did. I cleaned the top of the spindle, because what we're gonna do, once we're about to button this up, we're gonna put in a new felt pad, okay? And that felt pad acts as a brake when the disc is, so what it does is when you eject the disc, this springs up and it stops spinning when it hits that pad. It's like a little brake. And we do that, or that's there because you don't want that CD to be spinning as it's coming out. See, yeah, a little bit of dirt on there, but not really much. Not much. Okay, let's try it again. I start with a CD player because it's right at the top. It's the easiest thing in the world to fix if it is in fact something that we can easily correct. But I always start with a CD player. I gotta eat my frosting before I eat the cake, you know? I like the frosting. CD players are frosting. You can quote me on that. BBISHOPPCM says CD players are frosting. Okay, make sure that that's punched down all the way. Okay. Don't know if it'll work. Oh, look at how dirty that is. Can you see that? Look where the cassette is. I'll get a better view of it. When we get the CD player mezzanine out, I'm going to remove the CD mech or the cassette mech, and we're going to take a good look. I bet you this CD player hasn't been used in so many years that that's why it just kind of got stuck all on its own. So, try to reach in there with a pick. There we go. We'll do that kind of thing. Alright, CD player works. Now let's move on. So here's a CD player mezzanine. That's what I call it. It's kind of the shelf midway between. See a little bit of corrosion on that cable. That's not great, but it's not that bad either. Unplug all this stuff. On this radio, we're going to go ahead and pull this this board out, and we're going to look for any capacitors that have started to expand and leak. Now's the time to fix them. But yeah, I'd like to see what his car looks like. This is in pretty good shape. So what we're doing here is we're going to look at all of these caps, these little round things. Just look for any residue that might be forming around them, which would indicate a compromised seal, which indicates the electrolyte is leaking out. All right, now we're getting down in there. This is getting kind of dirty. Okay, and plug these two. Excuse me. So yeah, I think I'm fully recovered from coronavirus now. Amelia and I had it a couple weeks ago, and it lasted about a week and a half, almost 2 weeks of just severe cold-like symptoms. Actually flu-like symptoms at one point. We were both running a fever of 100, and I was running 100 and almost 102, and I think she hit 101. Yeah, not a fun time. The current version of the coronavirus, the current incantation of it, is way less severe than it was when my parents got it back in coronavirus 2.0 days. I think we're on 4.0 or 3.0. But yeah, it's not as severe as it was. And yeah, I think we're at endemic status, meaning it will never be gone. It's just now part of our lives. Look at this thing. Oh my God. What the hell? And yeah, those belts are gone. We'll just change those out. I should be able to get her done. I have those in stock, ready to install. And I do want to pull this board off. This is where our power and amplification capacitors are located. I want to pull this board off and take a look inside. Get that all figured out. And yeah, that's what we gotta do. So that's held in by screws on the outside. I like to do that on every radio that comes my way because, you know, again, you want to catch these problems now. Somebody's paying you good money and they went through all the trouble to remove it from their car and to ship it out, and you know that's not easy to do. You know. Also, we need to work on some pops on this guy. Let's take a look here. So I've seen a couple of these where this cap right here has burst. But these look pretty good. That yellow stuff is that's just Celastic. It should be flexible. Yeah, it's like rubber. None of these are really looking any worse for the wear visually. And in my experience, at least with these, if they look visually okay, they're probably fine. I replaced all the caps on my own radio, and it didn't make a damn difference. I'll be honest. I thought it did, but it really didn't. It really wasn't worth it. Worth the time, worth the expense. So, okay. So now that this is out, what I want to do is I want to, we're going to spray a little bit of electronics cleaner. We're going to get it into the pots. These are like, I think they call these a stacked potentiometer array. I made that up. Basically, it's just there's 1, 2, 3, there's like 4 potentiometers in one stack. They're riveted together. They are not serviceable. And removing them is a bastard because you have to unsolder or desolder all of these. I don't have a soldering tool good enough to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just spray these down with contact cleaner. Both of them. I'm going to get them all. And that'll work its way in there. If we all hope and pray. Not the cleanest stuff in the world to work with, but it works. We'll spray it down the shaft. Kind of let it drip down inside. Kind of work it around. Oh, you can tell it's getting in there because... Oh yeah, it's getting in. I see this black stuff oozing out of there. That's oxidization. Yeah, so that should do the trick. This stuff won't harm anything. It's good stuff. This is what you use. Okay. Just kind of work it in there. These are not airtight, so that's actually kind of a good thing. Spray them again. I'll let it soak in. Okay. And let it drip out. You can tell it's getting in. There's your balance control. Here's your volume. And then you've got your tone control. Okay. And that also controls your lighting too. So that should take care of that problem. All right. And we'll just take some air and we'll spray off any excess. Looks like I gotta go shopping. I need some chemicals. I gotta replenish my my chemical supply. All right, that should take care of that problem. All right, let's take a quick look at that CD player. So what I want to do is we're gonna spray a little bit of this stuff because it's also mineral oil. I'm gonna put just a tad bit in there. Just kind of get these shafts, get something in these shafts here. There we go, just a little bit in there. That'll prevent it from sticking again. And then we're going to put a little bit of grease on the slidey parts, and that'll be okay. All right, cassette deck. I love cassette decks. Let's put this back together again. Now, because this is contact cleaner, why don't we just spray a little bit on the contacts. And because, you know, when in Rome, I clean this up a bit too. We're going to be getting back inside here again as I'm going to be adding a little bit of Bluetooth. I have to order a Bluetooth module, remind me. I just used my last one, so I got to go get one. Don't know what I'm going to do when they stop making those. Because I know they will at the worst possible time. I'll have like 5 radios lined up and I'll go to order my Bluetooth modules and be like, oh, we don't sell that anymore. Try this Bluetooth module. The thing is, the part that I'm buying is not made to be implemented like this. I mean, it's kind of made to be used as the owner sees fit, but it's not specifically made to be integrated into another device. Although it is the perfect one. It is the perfect one for that purpose. I mean, actually, it's kind of subjective because it ships as a bare board with all the components all ready to go. And I guess it's kind of a universal, like you could implement it into any amplifier of your choosing. But it just has the perfect power consumption properties. It has the perfect size, the connectors, everything is perfect for what I'm doing with them. It's just there isn't a better product in the market that I use. And for the record, you know, this is no secret. I use the D-Rock or Drock Bluetooth modules. They sell them on Amazon. That's the only place I can get them. I'd rather buy them from a better source, but only Amazon's got them. And they're fairly inexpensive, and they sound great. I mean, they sound amazing. For what my purposes are, anyway. Spray all electrical connections. Spray them all. Okay, so that's that. Plug that back in there. Now, let's take a look at our old cassette deck. This one's going to need some help. Take all this crusty old tape off. Okay, we'll take the back cover off. Oh yeah, look at that. The belt slipped. Yeah. Good to catch them like this before they turn into gum, but this is how the belt, look at that. That's not a good belt. It's a bad belt. So now let's get this ejected manually. There we go. I don't imagine he wants this back. We'll just throw this away. This looks like a fairly old one too. Yeah, it is completely worn out. Yeah, it's done for. And we got, oh wow. Yeah, this is going to need to be taken down pretty deeply, I'm thinking. Actually, I might actually have a deck that's already refurbed. I think I do. I've got one that's partially taken down. I don't have one that's ready to fly. Okay. I've got a deck for the Panasonics. I've got one ready to go, but not a Pioneer. So a couple of things happen with these that I like to address, and this one I think is going to be no exception. The clutches are a source of weakness, and because this was running a Bluetooth device for so long, we're going to take a really good look at this one. Yeah. Take the whole load mechanism out of here. And my pliers. Am I using those pliers? No, I got these. This will work. So take the springs off. Depending on which version of cassette deck you have, it'll have a little bushing. We want to keep our cassette deck screws separate from everything else. We don't want to put it in Gen Pop. Okay, so undo this spring here. This one always gets twisted and mangled for some reason. Okay. To roll it back. Oh no. There we go. There we are. Get that out of there. And get this out of here. And that gives us full access to the internals. Yeah, where's my screwdriver? This one gonna be the good one? There we go. Change out the belts. So there's two belts up in here that we need to swap out. And I have found the belt sizes and I know where to get them. Yeah. There's another one here. Okay. Is that my cat or the chair? I keep hearing this. Our cat meows. He squeaks. He doesn't meow, he squeaks like a little chew toy. He really sounds like a little chew toy. I think it's the funniest thing. I think he's got a confidence problem. I don't know. All right. So that swings down like that. And again, these belts, yeah, these aren't too bad, but they're hardening. They're developing a very plasticky texture to them. So we got new ones ready to go. Put those aside. Now, at this point, you can just kind of wipe down some of the grime and grunge out of here. Okay. And we're going to take these C-clips off. And that'll give us access to the clutches, which, let's feel them. See if they're any bad. If they're bad. Actually, these feel okay. They don't feel too bad. Mine, the clutches are weak. So one of the symptoms of weak clutches is the tape will automatically reverse at the worst time. Like randomly, it'll just do it. Swing that around like that. Unlock it. Yeah, I think these are okay. If they're excessively easy to turn, then you've got to take them apart and clean the clutch surface internally. And yeah, it's a whole big thing. Okay. Now is a good time to start cleaning. We're gonna take our swabs and we're gonna clean the ooh, gross. These are stock. Yeah, they're all right. We're gonna clean the rubber rollers. You shouldn't have to replace them unless they're cracking, but if they're like glazed or they're just dirty, just clean them with a little bit of rubbing alcohol. It takes care of it. Another viewer made a comment to me that I should invest in a cassette deck timing tape or speed adjustment calibration tape, and yes, I agree. I really should do that. I just haven't done it yet. I've got a lot of expenses and I just haven't done it yet. But I will be doing that. I mean, every time I do one of these, the service gets a little bit better and the price goes up just a little bit until I find that happy medium of what I need to be charging my customers. But this kind of work is going to dry up, so I don't want to invest too much. Again, there's only so many people that want factory stereos in their cars, and I pretty much think I've already gotten the cream of the crop, and then the rest of it's just going to kind of trickle in. But I'm afraid of just going to start investing so much of my own money into equipment and supplies and tools that I'm just going to completely run out of money and not run out of money, but I'm going to be wasting my money. But what I do is I listen to cassettes that I know how they're supposed to sound, and I have a pretty good ear for that, I think. And then what I'll do is if I have to second guess it, I will actually take that cassette deck and put it into a different player and see how it sounds, how it compares. I've done that a few times, just in case, like, am I hearing it right? But I use songs that I know. So I'm doing it by ear, really, and I'm really into music, so I think I know what I'm looking for in terms of speed. Clean that head up nice. Give it a good general cleaning. Not that anyone's going to look in here, but I'll know it's there, and now you will too. So, yeah, that's kind of gross. Then what we do is we take another, a little bit of PAO grease. I got to order more of this. Running out. And we'll put some of that grease on all the slidey bits. Anything that might move. Kind of just helps things out a little bit. Some there, some there. I look for areas that already have grease and I just kind of add to it. Again, anything that slides, anything that moves. We want to make sure we don't put it anywhere where it could potentially get into the tape path or on the rollers or the belts. That's how we roll. That's how we do our thing. Maybe going a little overboard, but you know, again, I charge a premium, and I would expect people would want premium service. Okay. Okay. All right. The nice thing about the Panasonics is they're not really that hard to get in time. The Pioneers are kind of a pain in the ass to get them in time. What I mean by that is they're mechanically timed. Everything has to be put together a very certain way in a certain order, lined up a certain way. And if you don't do that correctly, you run the risk of the whole mechanism will just jam up. And you know, that's never a good thing. So we got these right here, SBR 1.2. The SBR 1.2s are for the, these are a little bit on the small side. Actually, they're very on the small side, but they do the job. They fit. I'm going to have to probably, when I order my next batch, I'm going to have to go up a little bit. And the 8.6, SBS 8.6 is for the main drive. And that seems to be a happy medium right there. Yeah, I'm going to probably go with a slightly larger. But then again, you have to consider these belts have stretched over the years. I didn't look at the production date on this one, but it looks like it might be a 93, so. Okay, let's do her. So we're going to slip this belt onto here. This one's kind of tricky to get to. Just going to have to, almost there. These are on the, a little bit on the small side, but I've got to use them up. I paid good money for them, and they do work. Come on, keep going, keep going. Oh. Oh. There we go. Come on. Oh. Almost. No, it got greasy. It fell into the grease. So we've got to take it back out and clean it. Clean the grease off. I think the next size up was too big, so I had to go with these. Yeah, it's not easy being green. Kermit the Frog said it best. Bastard. Come on. There we go. Is it on? It's on. There we go. And what we'll do is we'll run some alcohol around that. So if your cassette deck, if the tape is jammed in, then chances are the problem, it could be these little belts, but it could also be where's that other belt? Did I grab two? Did I grab one or two? I put them all away. I thought I grabbed two. Oh, maybe not. But the main drive belt could also be the problem. So yeah, it could be one or more issues that are going on there. Get this thing positioned just right. There we go. Awesome. Yeah, that'll do the trick. It's not going to slip, and the motor's powerful enough to do the trick. So we're going to put a little bit of grease on these worm drives. Dab, doesn't take much. All right. And I think we're ready to button her up. Make sure those spin freely. They're okay. You know, a lot of stuff in this unit has been stuck from years of not being used. I'm really only imagining that this thing wasn't used for cassette playing for a number of years. Probably hasn't worked at all in quite a while. So that just kind of sits on there like that. Gotta make sure we route this correctly. And it goes like that, around. Right, so let's get our this back together. You know, when it comes to repairing vintage stuff like this, it's almost immune to the Right to Repair Act, because even if the Right to Repair Act were a paramount in our society, if it were, you know, successful, widely successful, chances are it wouldn't really change anything I do here, because you know, these parts haven't been in production for many years, and the documentation, they're not going to go back and retroactively start publishing service data, you know. And not only that, but a lot of this stuff that I work on, the service data is out there. It's been out there. You know, a lot of the service data comes from materials that were furnished to authorized service providers, and it's been kind of leaked out freely over the years. And I really don't think Panasonic or Pioneer care that it's out there, because no matter what, they're not really making any more money off of these old radios. You know, this is a past product. But it would affect, you know, maybe if, you know, a 2023 Miata radio or head unit. You know, those service materials may suddenly become available, if not for free, at a small cost. But yeah, one of the things that I don't like about this culture of, you know, throw it away, don't fix it, is it's changed the way younger generations see the world, the way they see their possessions and their belongings, you know. And that really kind of started in full force when I was a kid, you know. A lot of my toys and my electronics and stuff were considered fairly disposable. But computers and heavy, expensive things like computers and televisions and VCRs, there was a thriving repair industry for those when I was a kid. I remember my dad, he bought a TV from a family member, and they only had it for a couple of years. It was a Zenith, a 27-inch Zenith. It would have been made in about 1989 or so. And this TV, it had died, you know, and my dad said, you know, I'd like to buy that from you. So my dad gave him like $100 or something for it. And it was a nice TV. It stereo sound. It was a beautiful TV. But my dad just brought it over to the TV repair shop, because there were TV shops all over the place, and there were TV shops everywhere. And if any of you are familiar with Nashua, New Hampshire, this one, it was Armin's Radio and TV. And I remember going to this shop with my dad. He brought this giant 27-inch TV, walked it into the store, and my dad said, yeah. My dad knew what the problem was. He just didn't have the ability to get the parts because, you know, he was an auto mechanic, and his specialty wasn't TVs. But the TV shop said, okay, no problem, we can take care of that for you, and it'll be ready in, you know, a week or two. And sure enough, Armin's was able to order a new power supply for the TV and got it working again. And we used that TV for nearly 10 years after that. Imagine that. Almost 10 years. But that's just the way it used to be. You know, and the TV, again, it wasn't like from the 50s. It was a 1989, you know, and a rather decent model. You know, it was a Zenith, back when Zenith meant something. You know, hold on, I gotta stop this for a second. Alright, sorry about that. I had to concentrate for a second. This was getting a bit frustrating. It's got to get all these springs back into position. And let's see. Should do her. So now when I roll this gear, or this pulley backwards, it should be in the eject position. Good. That slips. I'm going to go a little bit further just to make sure all these clutches are slipping like they're supposed to. And now we'll put a tape in there. I have this book on tape that I use. I didn't quite care for it, so it serves its job as a test tape. And there we go. So that works. Awesome. Very good. Micro switches get hit as they're supposed to. Yep, good. Okay. Alright. So this deck is ready for a belt. Oh, you know what I didn't do? You're supposed to remind me, guys. I forgot to clean the cap stands. Well, it's a lot harder to do now, but that's okay. All I'm doing is I'm using some rubbing alcohol on a swab, and I just rub the cap stand up and down until it's clean metal. These actually have a texture on them. These are not polished. That is not a one-off. That is just how they're made. Some decks you'll find that the cap stands are textured. Oh, I'm sorry, are newer finish. And yes, some of them are textured. But this one had a lot of buildup on it, and it's because of the usage of. Let me pull that tape out of the trash again. So this had a CD cassette adapter, and if you look inside of it, you'll see that there's a rubber roller right here, and it is worn to shit. Well, that roller was wearing down on this rear cap stand. You can see where all the rubber buildup is. That is abnormal wear and tear. Fortunately, it's not harmful. It can be removed. Not a big deal. Just take your alcohol and just clean it off. But if we didn't clean that off, we probably have some problems maintaining a smooth cassette speed. Now, getting back to the idea of the cassette speed adjustment. Yes, there is an adjustment for cassette speed, and it has to do with a little potentiometer on the back side of the motor. And on the Panasonics, they have the same thing, but you can't get to it when the unit is assembled in a running condition. In fact, I believe on the Panasonics, it's done on a rig during the production process, and we do not have that rig. So, but on these, you can definitely adjust the speed during playback with the unit partially assembled. It's not that hard to do. So, let's get all that rubber off there. One of the most expensive jobs that I offer is the faceplate restoration. It's exclusive. I'm the only one doing it, and so even if you find a shop that does repairs on these, which I don't know of one that does, but if you do, they're not going to be able to do the faceplate restoration. That is an exclusive that I offer, and it is very costly for me to do them because of the materials that I have to buy. So I do charge a little bit, about 100 and I think my current rate is 150 or 170. I think it's 150 is what I charge for the faceplate restorations, because it's such an expensive, time-consuming process. But that's this guy doesn't need any of that. He just needs a light restoration, I guess you could call it. Just a very lightweight restoration. So his bill is not going to be so bad. I don't like to talk pricing on the channel because it is constantly changing based on a lot of factors. But I will say that a job like this, you're looking at just shy of around $300 with the Bluetooth mod. It's not cheap, but it's I try to be reasonable with my pricing. So there you go. All right. So we're gonna get this belt on there and run it around a few times to get it to even out. Looks good. Looks good. Nice. I'm going to throw a little more grease in a few spots before we button it up. I'm going to put a little bit of grease in here, in this rack of teeth. Right there. And that should do it. I'm going to put a little bit of grease behind this spring so that they can slide back and forth smoothly. And on the other side, I think we're good. A little bit of grease in this slide right here. You don't want to go crazy, but just lubricate it. There we go. Now we can put the cover back on and we can test it out. That wasn't so bad. We're going to clean all this debris out of here. Light cleaning. We don't have to go crazy. It's okay. There we are. Before we button this up, I want to double check to make sure that this wiring is properly routed and isn't going to come loose and get in the way of the belts. So I just had to make a little adjustment there. Okay. Okay. All right. That goes there. And mistakenly shoved my cassette deck screws into the other bin like I told myself I wouldn't do, but I did. Oh well. Okay, and there's one long screw that goes here. Okay. Now that should be good to go. Everything looks to be kosher. There's a little bit of errant grease here that we're going to just kind of mop up. We don't want that getting into the tape path. That would be devastating. Give it a quick once over. Yeah, looks good. Looks good. One more thing I'm going to do. I'm going to grab yet I go through a lot of swabs. I'm going to clean the tape cassette load path. We're going to clean the rails here, remove any built up dust and dirt from there. On the back side, there's a little bit of schmutz back there where the cassette deck, or the cassette actually hits the back of the throat here. We're going to clean all that off. Clean the path here. Anything that the tape touches. Remove anything that might get on the tape. Okay. Now we test. Oh yes, I found that missing belt right here. Put that in my bin. We do not need this CD player for this part of the job. All we need is the cassette player. We're just going to drop it into position. Plug it in. We do need the faceplate though. That's alright. It's easy to get to when you've got the unit disassembled to this level. So let me find this in. There we go. Okay. Now we'll be able to test whether or not we were effective at repairing the volume control knobs with a deoxit. These flex circuit cables are sometimes tricky to get in. You have to have this thing hooked. There we go. Okay. Now we're cooking. Plug that in there. Make sure that works. Did I unplug? Oh, I unplugged my power. That's off the step. Turn it on. We got time. Time. All right, let's pop in a tape. Here we go. Oh. It's not actually loading. There it goes. There it goes.
I suppose you think you can draw me by getting Evangeline's family excited about her innocence, but you'll have to look elsewhere for your money.
Still got a little scratchy.
From my court appearances as a public defender.
Not sure why it's so quiet.
Outstanding employee, widowed mother, sole support, intense family.
The light came up that a small man with a big head, half the age I associated with a college person, dismissed the students with a reminder that their papers were due Monday. As they filed out, discussing the movie, I
It's only playing from one side.
Up close, he was older than
Speed sounds okay. It's real quiet.
The case on the way to the projector. Just another manifestation of the Don Quixote complex, he said when I finished. How can I help?
Of course, my balance is a little off too, so let's fix that. Yeah.
We've always identified with gods and heroes. The appeal of the noir protagonist is he's more approachable than Beowulf or Sherlock Holmes.
Make sure it fast forwards.
Girls are...
Reverse.
Then the videotape I brought into Neil Cully's VCR. She was ready.
I'm going to play some music tapes. I can't do that on camera, and then we're going to kind of see how she does. Alright, so we're going to have to pull that cassette deck back apart again. The clutches are slipping upon tape insertion. I'll explain what that means. So what's happening is when you put a tape into the cassette deck, the first thing it does is it tries to pre-tension the tape. And I haven't quite determined how exactly it's determining the tape is tight or not. But what happens is it starts to roll the tape forward. And it's, as I understand it, it's depending on the static pressure on one of the two spindles or clutches. And I think it actually locks the clutch into place. I'm not really sure how that works, but what's really happening though is the clutch is allowing too much movement, and in doing that, the tape never tensions. So it does that for a little while, and it's what it's looking for is it's looking for one of the pulleys to stop spinning. So once the tape is tight, the opposing or the non-driven pulley is supposed to be stationary. So if I put pressure against this pulley, for example, or this take-up reel, what it's going to do is it'll immediately start playing the tape. But if I don't do that, it just keeps spinning and spinning and spinning. The other problem that I'm having here is the amplifier is weak. I was not able to remove the rumble and the volume control, and it's very weak. There's not a lot of sound coming out of this. So we're going to just swap out the amplifier board, and then maybe we'll refurbish this one at, at a later date for somebody else. But we'll swap the board out, and I have 2 or 3 of these amplifiers, and we're going to just try it and see what happens. Don't know, but yeah, it's very weak. It's possible these caps could be going bad. I'm going to try this one and see what it does. And this one came out of a radio that had more problems than it was worth. So I don't know if this one's a functioning board or not. But yeah, this thing's got some issues that I wouldn't really expect, given the physical condition. It didn't really look like it would be this bad, but this one's got some problems. So let's see how many of these we can resolve without creating new problems. That's the goal. That's the goal. How many problems can we solve without creating new ones? Well, we'll find out. But anyway, so I'm going to be taking the cassette deck back apart. I'm going to do it. I'm not doing it tonight. We got it to a point where I know I can get it to play, so it sounds all right for something that's 30 plus years old. So okay, let's try it now. Okay, I'll put the tape back in. Oh, there's already a tape in there. Oh yeah, I gotta get the cassette door in the right position. There we go. Okay. There we are. Okay. Let's see. This one's even worse. Oh my. Yikes. So it's even worse. Try to. It's not the cassette deck. It's barely hear it at all. All right. Let's try another one. I got more. There's more where that came from. Don't you worry. Don't you worry. All right. Okay. There we go. So there's two versions of this amplifier board. Some of them have this port in the back, the other ones don't. The newer ones don't have that port. The old ones do. Alright, that's your lesson for now. Let me see what else I got. I got another one, unknown condition. Oh, this one actually has had some cap work done to it. But overall, I don't know what its primary malfunction is. So we'll just pop it in and see. I think this one I did caps on. So. Like I said, you know, the capacitors are one of those things that I don't really change unless I really have a reason to. I don't like to change out parts unnecessarily. And I've talked about this before. The capacitors that were used back in the day are better quality than what they sell today. So, yes, they don't make them like they used to. Truly applies to caps. All right, let's give this a shot. Let's see what we got here. Oh, this one's got issues. Yeah, this one's not really putting out much power to the lighting circuit. Oh no, I hit it. I turned it off. All right, here we go. Cassette. Oh, there we go. That's what we're looking for. Oh yeah, this is all set. That's what we needed. And by the way, it solved our rumbling problem with the volume control. Sounds pretty good. All right. So I want to talk about relamping the control panels for a minute. So I'm in the process of doing that to this particular radio, and so I've already taken. So what I do is you can do the lamps without disassembling the entire control panel, at least on the main unit panel. The bottom one, I think we have to take it apart to get that one done. But this one we don't have to, and I'd rather not take things apart if I don't have to, because, you know, less invasion, the better, you know. Anyway, so I want to talk about a couple of things. Number one, I'm going to get asked a lot about LEDs, and then people have asked me about LEDs and switching them over to LEDs, okay? Nothing wrong with that. It can be done. But what you've got to do is figure out, you have to choke the power going to the lighting circuit. There's two lighting circuits. There's the LCD panel, which is these three bulbs here. Those are all they're on a separate circuit from the remainder of the field. And they do that because when you turn your lights on, when your lights are off on the car, this LCD panel remains illuminated. And when you turn your light in at a brighter setting, when you turn your lights on, the LCD panel switches to a lower voltage, lower brightness, and the rest of the field lights up. That's for night mode. Now, if you are to switch it to LEDs, okay, you've got about 8 volts, between 8 and around 10 or so volts going into these bulbs. LEDs run on a fraction of that, 1 to 2 volts or so. And so, yes, you can do LEDs, but you've got to choke the power down to about, so you got to figure out what size resistor is needed, and you've got to put that resistor, actually you can do it in line, you can reroute some of these wires through to a resistor pack or something like that, and that's how you're going to do it. Now, the problem with doing that is, well, first of all, let's talk about, because this kind of ties into it. The lighting gets its color from these little bulb condom things, and that is not the technical term. They're actually little rubber light filters, color filters. This is, by the way, what an assembled bulb should look like. You're going to reuse that rubber backer, which helps to keep the leads spread apart. And anyway, so yeah, if you were to change the color, what you could do is you could get different colored bulb condoms. I know they're out there. I don't know where you would find those, but you can get, they are out there. And you can switch to any color you want. But here's the problem. The LCD, which, by the way, the LCD uses a different bulb. It uses a brighter bulb. So I actually use a completely different bulb on those 3. And but the color for the LCDs comes through the back of the LCD. So there are no bulb condoms on those bulbs. It's just a bare bulb that goes in that spot. To change the LCD color, so you can change the illumination on the buttons to whatever color you want, because again, the color comes from these removable filters. That's not true for the LCD. So you could have, you know, red buttons, but your screen's still going to be green. And if you change it to, like, let's say you put a red LED in the place of the bulb, that's the original bulb, you're going to get an undesired effect. It'll be green and red mixed, and I think that's going to be like purple or something like that. You probably don't want that. It'll be almost, see, green, red and blue, you get purple, but red and green, you're going to get some weird sickly color. So what you'll have to do if you really want to go all in and change the color of the lighting on the stereo, you're going to have to split that LCD apart and remove the green filter that's embedded in it. Which is a job that I don't recommend, and I won't do it. I will not do it because it's too risky. You're dealing with an LCD panel that is many decades old at this point, almost 30 years now, and or 30 years in some cases, and those panels are already sensitive as it is because they're old, and you don't want to wind up damaging them. You just don't want that because they're not replaceable. They're impossible to find. And in this case, this guy's LCDs are like new. These are almost as good as the ones that you're going to find in a minivan. Very little sun damage. So I talked to the customer. I sent him a few messages last night after I finished up recording for the night, and he was fortunately he was ready and at his keyboard. He does not want to do the overlays. I offered him a price that is basically retail price for what I sell those overlays for. They're $30 a set, by the way, if you want them. And I wasn't even going to charge him for installation. And once they're gone, they're gone. I'm not printing them again. So if I run out of these and, 2 years down the road, he emails me and says, hey, these overlays are breaking apart, because they will break apart. All right. If he comes back to me and says, I'd like you to change those now, can you do that? Or can you send me a set? I'm going to have to say no, because they won't be available. It's unfortunate, but I can't force people to do things. That's not what I'm here for. I'm here to guide. I'm not here to, I'm not gonna pull his arm, or whatever, twist his arm. I'm not gonna do that. I'm offering him $30 for a set, and once they're gone, they're gone. They will never be produced again. So, like I said, I can only recommend. I'm not going to twist anybody's arm, and he may have his reasons for not wanting to replace those. But now is the time to do those, because again, not only is there, not only do I have them in stock, but I'm also, $30 for the set. That's what I sell them for. That's actually less than I sell them for retail. I'm actually going to be offering these retail. I'm going to put them on eBay, and there'll be a fixed price of $45, including shipping. So yeah, it's, like I said, I can't, but these are going to break apart. They're already at a point now. Let's take a look at this one. These are at a point now where they're completely yellowed. The polycarbonate has discolored, and if you put even a little bit of pressure on these windows, they will crack. Whatever. But no, he also, he's happy with, I gave him the pricing. I said, so we figured out why I don't know where I left off on the filming last night, but I found that the amplifier board is bad. Now I'm going to take his old amplifier board. The next time I get one of these in, I'm going to replace all the capacitors on it and see if that restores it to full brightness. Full power. But it's only putting out a small amount of power to the amplifier, which is not good. And it is a problem that he knew about, but he wasn't really sure what the problem was, and he didn't mention it in the original message to me. So I found out what was going on, and I do think that in this case we may be dealing with some faulty capacitors. And but I have, like I said, I have that board that I put in there, and I believe it was a recap job that I did. I know I've done some work to that one. But, and the funny thing is, I took another board from another radio that I had on my shelf, and it had the same problem. So I think we might be on to a pattern issue that I can now identify and repair once I do some of my own testing. But this one's not going to be the guinea pig. This one is just going to get the working board, and we're going to ship it off as is. But yeah, I can only provide guidance to my customers if they send me a radio and they just want to do these couple of things. Now I can understand why he wouldn't want to refinish the faceplate, because it's expensive, number one. I charge a good amount of money for that. It's actually one of the most expensive services. It is the most expensive service I offer. And I charge what I charge because I have outlaid a lot of time, money, and energy into coming up with a method for refinishing them. So I gotta pay the bills, But if somebody wants to compete with me and start offering those types of services, I'm all for it. I'm not going to fight you. But one thing I do is I don't, I have invested a lot of money into my overlays, and I'm not giving those away. But like I said, I'm going to be offering those on eBay, I think, to try to sell off a little bit of, maybe a couple of them if I can get some of those sold off. And I got one guy in I believe Sweden who has purchased a number of those. So if you're in Sweden, I bet you there's somebody in Sweden offering repairs, which is kind of cool. But anyway, so yeah, this radio is going to be a good one. I expect it to it'll sound good for a number of years. I may have to pull that cassette deck back out. Hopefully I don't have to, but I may have to. So let's clean our tip here. Now, because I'm transparent, I believe in, I mean, hey, what I do here is not something that you can't do yourself. Everything I'm doing here, you guys can do on your own if you like. So I'll tell you what I use. So for bulbs, there's two bulbs I use on this model. There's the 7219s. The 7219s are these little guys right here. These are, I forget what they're rated for voltage, but these are about equivalent to what I pulled out from the OEM bulbs. And for the displays, I use, where are they? They're in a smaller, it's much smaller, but these are higher voltage. These are actually, these are lower voltage. These are, I believe these are rated for about 8 volts, maybe 10 volts. These are rated for about 6. And they're the only bulbs I can find that are as bright as the originals for the display. And there's 3 of these. Crap, I now gotta go order more bulbs, don't I? Which ones are these again? These are the 7152. 7152. That's what these are. And I have a whole box of them, thank God. Okay. The 7152s are what I use on the displays. And they seem to be, they burn bright enough. Yeah, so they restore the brightness. And these go in without bulb condoms. These go in just as bare bulbs. And they are small, but again, they burn brightly. And that's what we're looking for. Now what I do is I stick them back in the little rubber caps, and then I take my precision eagle nose and I bend them out, and then we trim the leads and we slide them right in there, just like that. I believe I use a different bulb. I gotta go back inside and look, but I believe I'm using a 2112 bulb for the body sonic display. The body sonic display uses, I believe, a single bulb. And yeah, I believe it's a 2112. Now, these are, I believe, industry standard bulb codes, bulb names. So you should be able to find them from your local favorite bulb supplier. I use Bulb Town. It's actually a division of Jasco. And I'm regularly ordering stuff from those guys. Usually pretty quick shipping, and their prices are reasonable. I buy them in quantity, so I get a pretty good price. And that's it. It's one. Now there's 2 more. Now this radio didn't have any burn bulbs. They were all fine. But we're just kind of hitting the reset button here. You know, he did request a relamp, so that's what we're doing. Now to do a relamp, I believe I'm charging about $50, and there's a little bit of profit in there. But, you know, I talked about this before, trying to set prices that are, number one, that somebody will pay. Because if you overprice your services, people aren't going to want to do it. They're just going to say, you know what, I'll just put in a $100 Panasonic or Pioneer or whatever's currently on sale at Crutchfield. And I'm going to just do that, you know. And I get it. I mean, that's the cheapest way to go. And you're going to get a stereo that has native Bluetooth. You know, it's not going to need new lamps. It's got LED lighting. And in most cases, you can customize the lighting color. I had a Pioneer. No, a Kenwood. I had a Kenwood. I had a Kenwood Exelon in my Miata that I installed when I bought it. And it was one of the first things I ever did to that car. And it did the job. But, you know, after a couple of years of owning the car and realizing that, you know, there is something to be said for having the factory stereo in a 90s car, that's when I started looking at, okay, what would it take to not only repair one of these, but to give it native Bluetooth or a built-in Bluetooth feature? How can I repair it both electronically and cosmetically, you know? And that's what got me started down this rabbit hole of servicing these radios. And it turns out that I wasn't the only one. I found multiple people on the forums that are like, hey, I want my factory stereo to work. You know, I don't want some, you know, Best Buy stereo hanging out of my dash that doesn't match the interior of the car, that doesn't look like it belongs there. So I found a whole market for people who felt the same way I did about the whole thing. Now for me, it was because my car was one of the Body Sonic ones. It had the built-in seat transducers, and it has you know, the tweeters and everything. And I wanted it all to work again. So that's what got me into this this whole subject here. So, and here we are, you know. And as to date, this is, I forget what number this radio is, but I've been numbering them as I do them. And yeah, I think we're in the double digits now for the number of radios I've restored. And I have heard nothing back from those customers. Not one of my customers has come back and said, I hate you, you smell. No one has said anything good or bad. So I hope things are still good with those individuals. And I hope they realize that I do offer a 30-day warranty on these. So if in 30 days it blows up, just send it back. I'll take care of you. I believe it's in my paperwork. But no one has contacted me with issues. So I assume that those are all happy customers. I assume you're happy if I don't hear from you. You know, that's how I do it. If I don't hear back, I'm assuming things are good and you're happy. Because if you're not happy, I want you to be happy. I want my customers to be satisfied with what they pay for. I don't think that's too much to ask. And I think that, you know, all things considered, that's the best policy to have. So why are we not getting anything out of this guy? Oh, it's turned off. Okay, let's turn it on. I got the clock, but no lighting. Did I screw something up? Probably. Or I pressed, there we go. I had the lighting turned off. So let's turn this guy on and see what the lights look like. Look at how nice and bright that is. Yeah, all right. FM. Why is that off? So everything is lit up. It's not as bright as I'd like it to be, but it's good. It's stable. Let's turn the lights off. Yeah, it's all lit up, except for this. It should be lit up too. All right. Let's take a look. See. I don't recall him having any bad bulbs down there, but could be the case. Yeah, there's no lighting coming out of that body sonic unit at all. That's interesting. You know what? Maybe they were out. Maybe they were out. I'll have to go back in my footage and see. Hold on. So I went through all of my my amp boards, and here's what I found. Each of these has a problem. I wrote down what the problem is. This one has no sound at all, but all lights work. This one has no lighting to the amplifier, but perfect sound. This one has perfect lighting, but no low volume. So we're gonna have to go through these, and I'll probably put together a dummy chassis, and we'll just start replacing caps and seeing if that fixes it. But the one with the lighting issue, I replaced the transistor on that one. It was this one. It's a C3421. I replaced the transistor, and I replaced all the capacitors feeding it. This transistor is what provides the power to the lighting circuit. And yeah, so what I need to do is determine what the hell's going on. I mean, we might have a bad resistor or something in there, but yeah, I don't know. I didn't replace the big cap on this one, but I did trace out on the schematic over there what is feeding the lighting circuit, and then I pretty much tried to make the corrective actions that way. But the fact that it puts out lighting only to the faceplate, we're going to hang on to these, and the next one that comes in with an amplifier board issue, either be a lighting problem or a low sound problem, we'll at least have some parts boards to pull from. And I just need to finish up these LED or light replacements. I did half of it, and we're going to do the other half. And there's only like, what, 2 more lights? I think there's 1, 2 more, because we have the... So, all right, that's what I wanted to talk about. So, all right, let's get back into the game here. The bulb that lights up the display, to get to that on this board, it's a little bit trickier. This board has to be pulled from its faceplate to do these, and you've got to desolder the shielding for the display cover. Just kind of wick all that up. There we go. We'll just wick all that out of there. It's almost like these are made to be repaired, you know? Well, the thing is, electronics back in the day were not necessarily made to be repaired, but they weren't made not to be repaired. There's a difference. Nowadays, they actively produce electronics so that they cannot be repaired, at least not economically, and not with hand tools. But back in the day, they were more interested in making electronics that were easy to manufacture. And yes, occasionally they would have to make them so that they could be repaired for warranty purposes. And it costs the company more money to be brutal. You know, you have to train your technicians a little bit better, and they have to use costlier tools. So it didn't make a lot of sense to make this stuff deliberately unrepairable. But nowadays, you know, we're just like one step away from having a world where, you know, motherboards and laptops are potted. I'm surprised it hasn't happened yet, to be honest. But it hasn't. We're getting there, though. So this bulb is a little bit... I think I'm using a different bulb. Yeah, I am. It's a slightly larger one. Oh, we got to take this off. put this back on prematurely. But to get down inside there, you got to take your needle nose, you got to reach in there or actually take your spoon and pull that lamp out. There it is. So this one is a slightly larger bulb, which I have. It's a 2112. And I stock those, keep those on hand, make sure I got enough. One thing to consider when doing these lamp jobs, both as a consumer and a technician, you never know. So the lamps that they were using back in 1991, 2, 3, 4, 5, they were a fairly decent quality bulb back in the day. And today, they're not necessarily as good. These new ones are made cheaper. You know, they're not made in top tier facilities anymore. The top tier facilities have either closed down or switched to LED production. These are made, you know, they're not necessarily as good as the originals. And that's a very real and very sobering reality. So these may not last as long as the originals, but there we go. Solder that there. Put a little blobby bulb there. Bend them back up and clip the two leads off. There we are. Okay. So this customer has already sent me a check. He's paying by check, which I do accept. I do accept personal checks. But I'd like to have it shipped out as soon as the check cashes and clears. I'd like to be in a position to ship this thing out as soon as that check lands. I'll deposit it in my account, give it a couple of days to clear, and then off it goes. That's the idea. So you want to have a reasonable timeline. But the condition of this screen is immaculate. I mean, this is as good as, this is the best you're going to find right here. This is as good as it gets. Yeah, it doesn't get any better than that. Not for these Pioneers. No way, no how. We got that all done. Goes this way. Oops. Yeah, this guy got lucky. I don't know where he found this radio. I don't know what kind of car it came. I don't know what car it came from. But man, oh man, it's immaculate. You just don't see him this good. You just don't. You never do. Well, I don't. So I went through all of my amplifier power boards, and I found one Goldilocks. I found just one that is fully functional. So, yeah, I got lucky. I found one. But, you know, I'm not replacing that board for free either. You know, the guy's paying for it dearly. Oh boy. Charging him. Well, I'm charging him what I will. I'm not going to advertise what I'm charging for the part because it's irrelevant. Because the next one that comes in, it might be more. If I have to fix the board. Oh, the next one that comes in with that problem, I'm going to have to repair the board. So that's why what I do when I price out jobs, when people come to me and say, "Hey, I want you to fix this radio," I usually say, "Okay, I need to know, number one, what is its functional state? Does it work? Does it make sound? Does the tuner work? Because that plays heavily into what I'm going to charge you. And it makes no sense to tell me that it works when it really doesn't, because I'm still going to charge you for the repairs. You know, because there's a clause in my pricing. If it ends up, it could be more. If it needs additional work that is not known or is not declared to me. So it's very important to do that, because again, you know, this was not budgeted for. The owner of this radio didn't know that it was a problem. He said, oh yeah, by the way, it does seem a little quiet. I'm like, yeah, that's because your amp is bad. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try to determine why the amplifier is bad, so that the next one that comes down my way, at least we'll know, you know, what the problem is and how to fix it. This particular bulb is hard to get to. It's buried up inside there, and just a little more of a hassle to remove. So I got my 2114. That's what I use for the displays. And that's also the display bulb for the Panasonics as well. Panasonics have two of those. The Pioneers only have the one. Now I gotta order more 7219s, but I'll wait until my next radio job comes in the mail. So as of this moment, I don't have another one lined up. That's actually kind of a first for me. This was the last one in the queue. And so if you want your radio worked on, just let me know and I'll schedule you in. But it'll be nice to take a little break from this for a little while, because yeah, it's a little time consuming, and I've got, you know, life to live and all that stuff. So but right now I don't have anything in the docket or in the queue. Nothing. So that's actually kind of freeing, if I'm honest. But okay. Alright, well, apparently I didn't do a good enough job clearing out those holes, because this is being a pain in the ass. Well, wait a second. I'm looking at the ends of the bulb here, and they're all just a little bit bent over. There we go. Straighten that out. Make sure these are not shorting out. There we go. Come on now, get in there. Yeah, it doesn't want to go through. Alright, now this is going to get tricky, because I've got to yeah, I see what's going on there. It's not cleared out enough. So here's how we fix that. Got to be some solder in there. I got to get myself a new desoldering tool. I really do. Let me just make sure I do it right. Get it nice and hot. Get some flux on that guy, and we will desolder this. It sometimes works, sometimes it doesn't. Let's hope it does, because this one is hard to get to. Now it's not. Oh no! Yep, I cleared it out. So now we should be able to get that bulb down inside there. Oh no. Alright. Here's one way to do it. We'll take the lead. Heat the lead up so that it melts the solder on the other side. Clear it out. Like that. There we go. Yep, now we're good. Little tips and tricks that you learn as you go, you know. Different ways to clean out the holes. Got a little bead of solder in there that I don't want there. Just brush it away. There we go. Come on now, get out there. You know, there are other potential opportunities that can come from this kind of work. So when the radio stuff dries up completely, I could start doing ECU repair. Although that's a bridge I don't really want to cross. But so the thing is, there's a lot of components like this in cars that date back to the 1980s, even in the 70s. Components like this that fail due to age and just electronics being electronics. And as it stands, and as it stood for many decades even, when it comes to electronics, mechanics typically don't get involved. They don't want to get involved in this. So when you bring your classic car to a mechanic, they're not going to offer this level of service, you know, with your stereo or even your ECU. As far as a mechanic is concerned, this is a replaceable, this whole unit gets replaced. What happens when those components dry up? What happens when you can't get them anymore? And even the junkyards don't have them anymore. Well, that's where somebody who can do basic electronic repair comes into play. Somebody who can perform basic diagnostics on an electronic component rather than a whole assembly. That's the person you want, because they can take your original radio, your original ECU, your airbag module, and in my case, the airbag module in my car was bad, but it was a very simple device in how it's built, and I kind of figured out how to fix it pretty easily. But, you know, that's the kind of thing that I'm talking about, you know, where you need someone who can perform these repairs. And a lot of these electronics are fairly basic, and all of it's through-hole for the most part. A lot of this stuff is through-hole soldered, so, you know, you don't need a heat gun. It's not that hard to work on. It's easy stuff. So I guess my point is, you know, there's a need, a pressing need, especially in the classic car business, to offer this kind of service. I'm considering taking the ECU out of my Miata and performing some visual inspection of the capacitors. There's a couple of electrolytics on the ECU. I looked up pictures of it apart. There's a few caps in there that could be suspect as the car gets older. I already know that the airbag module had failed many years ago because of leaking electrolytics, and so I've already replaced those. And it got me thinking. It's like, well, wait a minute now. You know, these cars are still around. There's a lot of not just Miatas, but other vintage vehicles from that time period that are going to have the same problems, the same issues for the same reason. Faulty capacitors and shit like that. You know, so if I were to expand my business into recapping airbag modules, but this is where the liability is kind of a concern, because if you recap an airbag control module, right, which by the way is the problem with them. So I'm not just saying recapping because, you know, they're old and caps are just probably bad. No, they really do go bad. So let me explain. The airbag module in the 90s Miatas and other makes and models, but we're talking about Miatas here, RX-7s, Ford Econolines, which use the same module. So those airbag control modules have 4 large capacitors. They're big ones, and those capacitors, after about 25 years, they begin to leak. And this really happens. This is factual. I'm not making this up. They do go bad. And so what happens is you're going to get an error code on your dashboard, on your instrument cluster, and it's a repeating flash. It's a flashing code that has a specific meaning. Depending on what that code is, depending on the number of flashes, it'll indicate exactly what's wrong. So if you had, like, for example, if you had an airbag inflator that somebody disconnected, you're going to get a code for that. If you have, if it senses a bad crash sensor, you're going to get a code for that too. And it's a very specific code. But one of the common ones, one of the most common codes that you're going to get on your 90s Miata airbag module is a battery code. Okay, and it's not talking about the car battery. It's talking, the code is kind of antiquated because in the older models, in the 90s, 90, 91, 92, they actually used a NiCad battery. And it would do a self-test of that battery upon ignition switch on, and it would report the status. If it isn't charged up, you're going to get a battery code. Well, in later models, they switched to a series of 4 large capacitors, and that's where we are now. So we got 4 large capacitors that are leaking electrolyte, and they're no longer holding a charge. The reason, by the way, for these batteries and capacitors in this particular circuit is to allow the airbags to deploy, to provide enough power to light off the igniters and deploy the airbags in the event of a power failure situation. So a complete power loss. So let's say you're hit in the trunk, where the battery is, the car battery's back there, right? You get hit in the trunk. Well, if you get hit just right, you're going to lose all electrical power. And without electrical power, let's say you're careening into a telephone pole, you got no power because you were hit in the rear corner. What's going to happen is your airbags aren't going to deploy. They don't do anything. So when they designed the airbag control module, they provided for this by allowing, or by including these either capacitors or batteries, and those provide enough power to deploy the bags, right? So when those capacitors fail, when the batteries fail in the older models, diagnostics will fail and your airbags will be disabled, right? So anyway, my thought was, well, what if I offered a service where I can just take care of it for you? I can fix those modules. Well, again, that's where liability comes in. So I fix your airbag module and you get into a crash. Airbags don't deploy when they should have. Insurance company wants answers. Or you report at the, when you get into this crash, oh my God, I sent my airbag module to so-and-so. And what's going to happen then? Lawyers are going to get involved, and they're going to want to know who so-and-so is and what are his qualifications for fixing airbag modules. I get sued into oblivion because your airbags didn't go off because something else caused. Because I touched it, because I was the last one in there, I am now responsible for your failed airbags. Am I making any sense here? All right. So that's why I don't really want to get into that business. Now, ECUs are another opportunity in this field that there is a pressing need for ECU repair on these 90s cars. Not just Miatas, but all of them. And, oh, fuck. What's going on here? Do I have a... I think I have a bent control shaft. Son of a bitch. Don't tell me. Don't tell me. I think the... oh, God. I hope not. I hope it's just not seated properly, and that's why. Looks like we have a bent control shaft. Oh, no, it's not bent. I just don't think the board is seated in properly. So why would that be? Yeah, that would be why. So I gotta realign that. But yeah, so ECUs, let's talk about ECUs for a sec. Yes, they are very susceptible to failures due to leaking internal electrolytic capacitors. It happens to the best of us. The problem is, I have no way of bench testing them. So an ECU shop will have they will have a dummy electrical system, a complete electrical system for whatever car that ECU goes to. And there are shops that do this, and they are not cheap. They charge dearly for their services. But they also have the rigs in place to completely bench test your ECU. You know, so anything that could ever go wrong with that ECU, like any malfunction, they can duplicate and then make a judgment call as to how to address that problem. So for me to get into the ECU repair business, number one, I would probably need to bone up on my my electrical diagnostics skills. But number two, I would need to invest heavily in wiring harnesses. I'd have to buy whole cars just to pull the entire electrical system, every plug, every harness, every solenoid, everything, and set it up in my shop here, so that I can now bench test your ECUs, which is something I don't want to do. No interest in doing that. Really none at all. But anyway, you know, so it's yeah, staying relevant. That's job number one, right? Because when this radio stuff dries up, when I can no longer justify what I'm doing, you know, there's going to be more markets to get into. ECU repair, airbags. Oh, the other thing is, let's say somebody sends me an ECU and something happens to it. Something happens to it. I got it on the bench, and oh my God, it's dead. Smoke lets out, you know, that kind of thing. Well, here's the problem. Whatever car that ECU goes to, if it's a rare model, or if it's got options that are hard to get, or whatever, you know, trying to find another ECU could be almost impossible. So meanwhile, that poor person who sent me the ECU to their beloved whatever car, whatever it may be, now that car is a brick. Without the ECU that they sent me that I screwed up, the car is, it's useless. You can't do anything with that car now. It's junk. So you can understand why I really want to avoid, you know, getting into that pickle of a situation, you know. So, you know, it's just, these are all thoughts that are rolling in my head, you know, like what if I decide I want to get into more, you know, more areas of this? What if I want to expand this business? And, you know, well, those are the implications. Liability, number one. And there is a very real need. So in my state, the airbag modules can be removed. Seriously, in the state of New Hampshire, the airbags not working is not a concern. They don't care. The state doesn't care. Honest to God. But if you have a Mercury Villager minivan with a light bar in the front, even though those little light bulbs don't do anything, it will fail inspection if those are not replaced. No, seriously. Ask me how I know. My parents used to have a Mercury Villager, and it would fail inspection if one of those stupid light bars, the lighted up grill, the illuminated grills that Mercury's had back in the day, if those bulbs were bad, the car fails inspection. But if the airbag module is dead, or there's, you know, flashing lights on the dashboard for the airbags, you're fine. Live free or die, my friend. Yeah, weird. The priorities are just bizarre. Anyway, let's, now that we've got this all back together again, I've got all new lamps throughout the system. Let's turn it on. I'm gonna plug in this connector here. We got all of our screws. Those screws, by the way, are important for grounding and for heat dissipation. Make sure those are all in. Okay, turn it on. Okay, that's working as it's supposed to. Turn it on. That works as it's supposed to. That works as it's supposed to. Good. Good. Yep. Brightness looks okay. These aren't very bright anyway, so, you know. Okay. I think we're back in business. I wish this flex cable was in a better location, but I'll take what I got, right? Got to put a protective shield over that, but we won't be doing that right now because we're still waiting for a Bluetooth module, so I can get that done. Cassette deck works.
The Cully's maid answered the bell and told me her mistress would be with me.
This sounds like it's running high. It's not.
I asked her to send Mrs. Cully to the basement when she was ready.
That's how the tape sounds.
Put her slept.
Working
And went
good.
down there.
Eject. Inject. Pretensions.
Would be with me.
Eject. Oh, it got stuck on the... Alright, hold on.
Is that right?
Eject. It's getting stuck because the faceplate's not seated correctly.
After which I hung up and placed 2 calls.
There it goes. Put it in the other way. Pretension.
Field's door doesn't have.
Eject. I think we're good. Now I've got one particular tape that seems to have a hard time in these mechanisms, and we're going to run that one too. This is actually an in-excess tape, in-excess kick, if you want to really know. And for some reason, if there's a problem, this tape will find it. It just won't load. Oh, it's turned off. Ooh. What happened here? It went down and it shut off on me. Why is that? There it goes. I don't know what happened there, but it's loading. Flip it around. Yeah, it's working fine. Now let's loosen the tape up and see what it does. So we're going to deliberately loosen this guy up and see if it tensions correctly. Alright, so let's do that. Yeah, working fine. Okay. Alright. I don't know why it shut off a second ago, but it hasn't done it again. There it goes. And that's what I'm looking for. No, it's playing. Flip it around. It's working fine. Okay. And there you go. Should be fine. Should be fine.